Hi, Stuart. This is Jan.
Yes,
Could you talk about the role or the lack of role of lineage in our work? The fact that we learned from you, you learned from Rudy.
hang
Rudy,
on a second. Let me just make you a little louder.
sorry,
And
I'll
then-
get closer to my microphone.
No, it's not you. It's I gotta
Oh,
go ahead.
could you talk about?
Now you're too loud. Okay, I think maybe we got it.
Okay. Could you talk about the role or the lack of role of lineage in our work? The way we learned from you, from Rudy Nityananda. How does lineage play into that? Or it doesn't?
No, it does. Look, I mean, spiritual practice is passed on from generation to generation by teachers that have students, masters that have disciples, that pass on the work of God, the work of spirit from generation to generation. And if you cut those connections, you really cut yourself off from the source of this creative energy. Every class I teach, Rudy comes to, Nityananda comes to. They provide me with Shakti, they provide me with energy to do this. And they come because I have in my heart such a deep gratitude for what these masters have given me in my life and made possible in my life that I just, every time even the thought of them comes, my heart opens and I say thank you. So lineage is a very important thing, because that's how spiritual practice sustains itself in the world. It goes from teacher to disciple, and it goes from those disciples, those students that are willing to do the work deep enough on themselves and to make whatever sacrifice they have to make to receive that energy. And it's passed on that way. I mean, Rudy, the first thing Rudy ever showed me when I met him, the first day, first minute practically, was a picture of himself lying on the floor, at the foot of a teacher with another photograph of Nityananda superimposed in his heart. He gave me my lineage the minute I met him. And then years later, he used to tell me the only reason I keep you around here is remind me of Nityananda when he was a young man. And it works that way. Understand? That's how it works. That's how spiritual teachings sustain themselves in the world. They go from teacher to disciple to, uh, you know, from generation to generation. And all a teacher dreams about is somebody who is willing to take that teaching on themselves and to become a child of God, a servant of God, to truly be here to transmit Shakti and nurturing and nourishment to human beings that come into their life. I mean, Rudy told me 100 times, don't love me. Don't love me, don't worship me, don't build shrines, just learn what I have to teach. And I feel the same way about all of you. Yes, I was grateful, and how could I not love the person who saved my life? It's not possible. But at the same time, wasn't enough. I had to truly do the work that was essential to be able to receive this amazing thing he was teaching me. I mean, when I was a little schmuck, 25 years old, what did I know about any of this? You understand? He saw it in me. And he was willing to take this street kid, this guy who was on drugs, on this and that, and teach him, have the patience for him to learn, what serving God is really all about. That's what a student teaches, the highest marriage on the earth. Because in order for it to work, you have to surrender to a higher force in the universe, both student and disciple. It's a one-pointed need, and that is to attain spiritual enlightenment. And it doesn't mean you don't live. I mean, life, requires that we do many things just to enjoy ourselves. But the overriding principle is what a person is willing to do, to grow spiritually and connect with God and to use that connection by serving that connection in the world. And losing any idea of who they are, what they are, their self-importance, their ego. It's all bullshit. It's all transient. It comes and it goes. It's born, it lives, it dies. What's real is a connection with energy that's infinite in the universe, and an energy that nurtures the soul and brings the soul to a point where it attains a state of enlightenment. It's free of karma. You get free of karma by living your karma fully and working out your karma. And what do I mean by that? You just simply become a happy person with gratitude for living in the world and for given the opportunity, given life, which is the opportunity to learn how to build a connection in yourself with infinite energy. And you need a teacher to do that. And if you're not grateful to that teacher, where the hell does it go? I saw so many people just turn their backs on Rudy. I mean, it was a great teacher for me. It happened with me in Muktananda, you know, where he was tearing all of Rudy's students away from him. And it was really unbelievable thing. Rudy, people, you're no longer my teacher. Muktananda is my teacher. I heard this over and over again. And then he tried to tear me away. When are you coming to visit me in Ganesh Puri? I'll never forget that. Baba, I don't know. Baba, I don't know. This went on for a week. I don't know. I don't. And then, I sat in my hotel room, did a deep meditation, and Nityananda came out of my heart. And Nityananda said to me, Stuart, you'll go to Ganesh Puri when Rudy sends you to Ganesh Puri. And what I told Muktananda when this happened again, you're not my teacher. Rudy is my teacher. You can rip away all his students. You're not going to tear me away. I know where my life came from, and I'm not going to substitute anything for that connection. So lineage is very important. I mean, you don't dote on it, you don't think about it, but when you have gratitude in your heart, boy, it really serves you. And it's amazing to have teachers on a higher plane that serve us, that provide the Shakti. They come, they create the miracle that takes place in one's life. And they do everything possible to help one to grow, including reminding each and every one of us that we're all just a bunch of schmucks living in the world, having to learn how to get there and to break ourselves down and to get past ourselves so that we can have a connection with spirit. Lineage is very important. Not something you worship, just something you are grateful for. I used to have people tell me, I don't need to do deep spiritual work, deep breathing, meditation. I'm living in the light of my guru, and he will take care of everything. I always believed that was the biggest insult you could ever give to your teacher. I am living in the light of my teacher. It means you don't have to do anything. And you got to work, you don't have to work on yourself. The teacher's aura of light and it never works. You have to do the work in order to receive the Shakti. So lineage is not something you worship, it's something you're grateful for. You don't worship your teacher. You're grateful to your teacher. Teacher is not a god. Teacher has to struggle with every single element that life presents to them in order to sustain not only a connection with higher energy, but a connection with all his students or her students. And the connection comes through gratitude. Gratitude to all of you for being here, for being in my life, for making these classes possible. Gratitude to God for being here and being in my life and making the work I do in this world possible. I hope that's clear, because it's a very important thing. And I know in every class I ask Rudy and Nityananda to come and help me transmit the Shakti that can work to help each and every person in this meditation grow. And I don't do it out of worshiping them. I do it out of sheer gratitude. Thank you. You gave me my life. You made it possible. I mean, how could I have lived the way I was living before I met Rudy? I don't think I could have lived past 32. The way I was living with drugs and, bouncing all over the world and traveling and, I, does anyone else have a question?
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. We had a really powerful retreat last weekend, and there'll be another one in February. If you want to come, you're welcome. I was just, it's a retreat in honor of Rudy Samadhi, the one in February. So try and make it if you can. I'm going to have to do only one thing in that retreat. I got to charge an extra $50. So I'm sorry about that. But, the world is getting very expensive and I need to be able to afford to live in it. So I have to ask another $50 from everyone, $400 instead of $350. Other than that, and come, and I'm telling you, the energy was of such a powerful nature, it was so strong and nurturing. And, it really was, see people changing in front of my eyes. Extraordinary weekend.
Stuart, this is Jennifer.
Huh? Yeah.
Can
Yes.
you can you build on the lineage part, because you've made people teachers? Can you talk about the importance of making teachers?
I would love to make everyone sitting here a teacher. But you got to earn that. You don't become a teacher because you're a teacher, you have to truly earn it through, the work you do, the opening, the service, the commitment to the contribution. You can't believe what I did working with Rudy. It was unbelievable. The stuff I used to do. And sometimes I screamed and complained and, and I will never forget. I was living I was the first person to live in his house, from students that came to live there. And I was living in this fabulous loft full of art, great art, Tibetan and Indian and all kind of Nepalese, wonderful things. And suddenly one day I came back there and there were 12 people living on the floor where I was living. And I didn't even have a place to sleep. And I went to Rudy. Rudy and I were walking on the street one day, and I said to him, Rudy, I said, I don't know where to sleep at night. I go back, and he looked at I'll never forget this, a blade of grass growing in a crack in a New York City sidewalk. And he said to me, that blade of grass has more courage than you do. I'll never forget it. I never complained to him again. And he was right. Imagine being a blade of grass growing in a crack in a New York City sidewalk and surviving. What are you complaining about? You're there. And yet, 2 weeks later, he came up to me and said, Stuart, I understand. And when I leave New York, and he used to go away a lot to teach and business, India, and he said, I want you to stay in my apartment upstairs. So it's what you're willing to surrender in order to get your spiritual life. Most people are not willing to surrender anything. They want to do it as they think they're supposed to do it. And it doesn't work that way. You have to do it the way God presents it to you and learn how to surrender in tremendous depth. Even the place I was sleeping, I had to surrender. And that's really what it takes. It takes just what your real need is. And then, it's like Milarepa, the story of Milarepa and Mappa. It's an amazing story where Milarepa was a magician. I think he was a murderer. He was a criminal. And he went to Mappa and he said, this is the only person probably in the world who's strong enough to fix me. And he said to Mappa, I want to study with you. What should I do? Mappa said, build me a house. Right there, there's the place. So Milarepa went and spent a year, built Mappa a house. And Mappa, when he finished, he said, what? He said, Mappa, I want you to tear it down and build me another one. My wife doesn't like that. He built 13 houses for Mappa. What could have been left of his ego? Nothing. He became the poet saint of Tibet, Milarepa. The poet, they always sculpt him listening to the voice of the cosmos with his hand in his ear. The poet saint of Tibet. By 13 years of total surrender. Now, we live in a different kind of world, and I don't expect people to build me a house for 13 years. But it takes something extra of giving, of learning, of surrender, of depth, where you don't just fit a spiritual life into one little corner of your life where it fits. You understand? It has to be a primary need, and you're willing to surrender a lot of stuff to do that need. And when you're serving God, there's nobody in the world that can take advantage of you. And that's really true. It's not for a teacher to take advantage of his students. It's for a teacher to nurture the people that are really making the effort to grow. That's the job. I remember, when I never want, I quit school about a half a dozen times. College, I couldn't stand going there. And then Rudy said, I want you to go to college, get a degree. This is a true story. I said, why? He said, well, I want to send you to Big Indian when you get a degree, so you have a way of earning a living. You have a degree, get a teacher's degree, something like you can earn a living while you're living up there. So I said, okay. I went, I got a degree, and I went to him the day I got my degree. And I said, Rudy, okay, you told me that extraordinary things are going to happen to me when you get your degree. What? How's going to happen? He said, I want you to get a master's degree. And boy, did that really upset me, because the last thing I ever wanted to do was to go to college. So I went to the meditation room. I sat down. I was really angry, upset. And I'm doing Rudy's meditation to learn how to overcome my anger. And suddenly Nityananda came out of my heart. He's sitting on the altar and he said to me, Stuart, what has Rudy done? He said, if you go get a master's degree and listen to what he wants you to do, he will be responsible to teach you everything he knows the next 2 years that you do this. And at the same time, I was teaching. When Rudy would leave the ashram, I would teach. And he took my teachings away. Rudy, I don't want you to teach anymore. And Nityananda said, so what has Rudy done? He's cut you down, like you're trimming a rose bush. He's cut you back to where the first time in your life you can grow in a healthy way. Surrender your teachings. So I remember I got up, I went back to Rudy's store, and I looked at him, and I gave him a big hug, and I said, thank you. And his response was, I didn't think you'd get it this quickly. And then about 2 months later, he asked me, was sitting in his apartment, and he said, I want you to go to Texas. These young kids, they called him from Texas. We need a teacher here. We need a teacher. Everybody's making everybody crazy. So he said, I want you to go to Texas. So I said, well, what am I supposed to do there? So he looked at me with his angry look. I said, what do you mean? I said, you told me I'm not a teacher. He looked at me and he said, you're really learning, aren't you? I said, yeah, I got a great master. He said, I want you to go down there and teach. So he reinstated me again as a teacher. Surrender made it all possible. And the miracle that happened is I spent time in Denton, Texas, and it was an incredible training ground for me to learn how to deal with people in life and my own growth. And then when I moved back to New York, I had all that experience behind me. So that's what it means to have a teacher. Do the work, grow, make it a primary thing. And the energy of the work will nurture your family, it'll nurture your friends, it'll nurture your business, it'll nurture everything that you need to live in this world. And it'll teach you one important thing, how to surrender in such depth that the only answer is to get to God and spirit so that you can allow that energy to guide your life. And that energy is energy of love, it's compassion, it's service. It's energy that nurtures people, and it doesn't work when you're just dealing with ego. Ego drives everybody crazy. I mean, my story is like something you'd read in some ancient Tibetan book, what I went through. And I've seen people do it who study with me. I mean, I remember calling Chris. I said, Chris, how would you like to go live in Nepal? Just called her up and asked her. And over the phone, she said, great, I'll do it. You want me to go there? I'll go. She went to Nepal, built an incredible situation there. And I saw her grow like extraordinarily. It was a wonderful thing. Does anyone else have a question? And trust me, the last place I wanted to live on the planet Earth was Denton, Texas. Trust me. I used to go to the edge of the town and I would see, like it was like the world was flat, with dragons coming up in the distance. You know, I but I remember I said that to Rudy, and he said, I said, Rudy, you spent a hell of a 3 weeks. That's how long I was supposed to be there. He said, you're on your fourth day. Took 9 years to complete 3 weeks, but the cycle was complete. Leapy, stop waving your finger there. It's disturbing the class. Thank you. It, it took 9 years to finish 3 weeks. Anyway, does anyone else have a ask question? Look what comes up. I learned too from your questions. I think it's great.
Just a comment, Stuart, about the retreat in February.
Yeah.
We already have 8 people signed up, so there's limited spaces available.
Yeah, if you want to come, I'm telling you, the energy, all right, I can't force people to come, but I suggest it, they're very powerful, these retreats. I mean, and I love doing them. This time it was a little bit disappointing to me. I think 7 people came. I was like, what? People want to get a spiritual life sitting in their bedrooms. I mean, I never heard of anything like that. You got to make an effort to get what the teaching is. Does anyone else have a question? And this teaching keeps growing, it gets stronger and stronger. And I'm not getting any younger. And I'm not saying this to threaten anybody, but for God's sake, I'm 82 years old. I mean, how much longer do I have here? Take it while you can get it. Do what you have to do to get what this is all about. Does anyone else have a question? And I feel like I'm 25, I mean, it's amazing. But then that's so many years of Shakti and energy building my system inside. I mean, I've taught 3 classes already today. I mean, after this weekend, I mean, it's really incredible. How do you do that? People my age, they're sitting, in an old age home, playing bridge. And it's truly years of work and Shakti and energy that make it possible to do this kind of thing. Otherwise, forget about it. Okay, thank you all. God bless you all. And there'll be meditation tomorrow evening and well, actually Wednesday evening. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. So God bless you. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Stuart.